Sorry.
Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Hello and welcome to Strategic Frontlines, the YouTube channel of Center for Land Warfare Studies. Today we are going to discuss a recently concluded event, Quad Summit of Foreign Ministers at the United States of America. A lot of things are different from the past as far as this Quad meet is concerned. So, what are those differences or shifts from the past? I would say that it is moving slightly away from the original agenda to becoming a more of a security partnership platform. How far I am correct, my experts are going to say so. I do not know, but given certain security aspects in mind, such as Quad at Sea ship observer mission, terrorism focus, messaging to China, diversification of supply chain for rare earth minerals, undersea cable, defense cooperation, and possibility of a naval interoperability developing further. Also, there is a certain amount. There is a possibility of a defense ministers meet taking place in the future of the Quad countries. Now, these are some of the indications that possibly Quad is now seeming more and more like a security platform, which our adversary on the north has always been fearing. But that I leave it to my two eminent guests today. Let me welcome Vice Admiral A.B. Singh, former CNC West East and Deputy SFC, and Dr. Tara Kartha, former NSC Director. So both are eminently qualified to actually comment on Quad, one in the maritime domain, the other one in the strategic domain. So I will open up with straight away Vice Admiral A.B. Singh, sir. How do you look at the current summit? How has it been different from the past summits? And do you really see a move towards securitization of Quad?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for inviting me for this show. 20 years into Quad, if I were to say, and in 2.0, almost 6, 7 years since 2017, we've had uh, six what six meetings of the leadership in the last 4 years, which include two of them being virtual. And I must say that Quad has moved in the direction that it ought to be moving, without naming China or anybody else. There is a security angle to it, and that is what must be remembered. How does this entire grouping come together? From the very initial beginnings of the Trilateral Security Strategic Dialogue between Japan, Australia, and US, to the tsunami grouping in 2004 to now. So I think it's a great step forward. The leadership is meeting, the foreign ministers are met, and this is, I must say, over and above the India-US dialogue, which is taking place on a bilateral basis. So, if I were to say Quad 2.0, I think it's moving in the right direction. There are a huge number of things which have come out in the current foreign ministers meet. And if I were to just name few of them, besides the free and open Indo-Pacific, we must look at, clearly they have put four clear agendas, very focused agendas, which include maritime and transnational security. They've also added economic prosperity and security. Then they've talked about critical minerals and emerging technologies, and uh, humanitarian assistance and quick response. So those are the four pillars which have been really strengthened this time, and all of them will help, of course, in containing China. And they've specifically made a mention, without naming China, that the rule of law must be followed, especially in the South China Sea and the East China Sea. And these are of grave importance, because if we are going to implement rule of law, whether it is freedom of navigation or overflight, and they specifically mentioned use of water cannons, which have been used by the maritime militia against the local players there, or whether it is the use of ramming techniques used by the militia and their fishing vessels. I think all these are very clearly pointing out that what is happening in the South China Sea, that part of Indo-Pacific, is specifically not very happy situation, and all of them are very concerned about it. And there has to be a response. Either we retain the rule of law, or we kind of let it become into a mayhem over a period of time, which is what has happened in the past.
So, okay, you want to add anything more?
Yeah, I also want to say that a lot of talk has happened in the past, in the last about 4 years. In the 6 meetings between leaders, a lot of points have come out, a lot of way ahead, and that's what the leadership ought to be doing. But I think there is a change towards security in the. This is the first meeting that is going to happen in 2025 in India, where the current president, Mr. Donald Trump, is going to attend, and we can see a shift towards securitization. And I think it bodes well for the Indian side, if securitization of the Quad takes place, because we are the only ones who are having a direct conflict with China on our land borders. So the question here is, do we use the maritime domain? And if we use the maritime domain, what benefits are we going to get? There's also an old saying that you got to fight your own fears and your own wars. So nobody's actually going to come and help you. But as far as technology is concerned, supply chains is concerned, your ports are concerned, maritime capabilities are concerned, maritime technology is concerned, there are benefits, in my opinion, which will accrue out of this entire relationship with the Quad. Not only the US as such, but also with Australia. We just had an undersea detection symposium, and we've had signed a MOU with them. Similarly, we are having a lot of dialogue with the Japanese on a bilateral basis. I think all this will come together.
Okay, so I think there seems to be a clear indication that possibly Quad is gradually, slowly, but steadily moving toward the securitization also, in addition to its existing agenda of cooperation, economic cooperation, technological cooperations, etc. But here is the twister which I want to ask, and that is going to go to Dr. Tara Kartha. And the twister is that if we are going to have possibly in the future defense minister level meeting, therefore what it implies is that the agenda is going to get expanded. And if the agenda is going to get expanded, India as of today is facing some kind of headwinds as far as US is concerned over terrorism and its stance on the Pahalgam incident. Do you think the statement which has come out from the Quad related to Pahalgam incident is fully supportive of India's interest, or it is just another, I would say, an act done to placate India while the tariff talks are going on? Your views on this?
I think the point is that they chose to mention Pahalgam at all is not so much, it's they want India is central to the Quad. This is the only grouping where we are central. That is the point. So to that extent, they will back you on the terrorism aspect. And as the Admiral said, there is also a very strong aspect of transnational security. Terrorism is what? It is about transnational crime. It is about human smuggling. It's about a range of criminal activities, all of which Australia in particular suffers from, as well as the US. The US has a very serious problem. And most of it comes from Canada, and we know which group backs that. Right? So that is point number one. Point number two is, I mean, the specificity of Quad during Operation Sindoor, there was a Quad tabletop exercise going on in Hawaii. Just about 5 or 6 days after we closed Sindoor, there was a US India group in Delhi on aircraft carrier cooperation. This is another aspect which Quad is also looking at. So, what I'm trying to say is for them, the various aspects of terrorism are a genuine problem. It's not just indulging us, they have a problem. So, it's for us, we can use that. Plus, India is central to the Quad. I mean, just look at it. I mean, I would say if you're sitting in Beijing and you look at the map, what do you see? You see that huge peninsula jutting out into the sea. India is as a logistics partner, which is also part of the statement. You are very important. So, in fact, recently the deputy Australian foreign minister he had met Rajnath's defense minister Rajnath Singh, and he said India is central to Australian security. Both Japan and Australia have been very strong in their individual statements on terrorism, on Pahalgam. And in fact, Australia said, we admire your leadership. I mean, they were very, very strongly on your side, though they also, of course, said don't escalate and all the rest of it. So this relationship has many, what shall I say, facets to it, which sort of born up the whole Quad relationship. You have a 2+2, as you know, you have a 2+2 bilateral anyway, which is going on, which is defense and finance. Now, if you're going to have a defense ministers meet, that is another incremental step forward. We want to take that even further, we'll have to see. It depends a lot on President Trump and his tariffs, because Japan and Australia are both extremely unhappy on that count.
Okay, so I think I get the sense that there are attached and other benefits if of us to associate with Quad. We are central to Quad, so therefore there is enough for us to actually leverage Quad for our own benefit and growth. I take that point fully, but let's also take the issue of the challenges. Even in the current Quad meeting, one of the challenges identified was the bilateral differences between the various countries of Quad. Now, this is more so between India and the US. Don't you think that all our proposals, whether they are coming from the US or from India, will have the shadow of playing with, there is this famous quote, running with the
Running
hare
with the
or
hen, hunting with the hounds.
yes, hunting with the hounds. Don't you think that is going to remain, or is it just a temporary phase while Trump is trumpetizing the world, and thereafter I think things will move back to original? I am talking of the Pakistani shadow, which they are always trying to use against India in some form or the other. It is good, they are treading in the areas which are undisputable, in the sense that there are no differences. For example, maritime domain, Pakistan has no competition with us, while along the land frontiers there is a huge competition which is going on, or a huge conflict which is there between India and Pakistan. So this particular aspect is going to always play on the minds. Now you saw the SCO getting, but you saw the RIC did not achieve much. You also saw the in the G7 things were not really very good. Possibly the only summit which had some amount of consensus and some amount of good things coming out was Quad, and for that I do appreciate the fact that Quad has done more than the other groupings which India is also part of. But even here, the shadow of Pakistan is something which I feel is going to continue to disturb our overall relationship. So, my next question to you is uh, defense cooperation and military modernization. Do you think this is going to facilitate defense cooperation and militarization and modernization of India, the Quad route, or it is going to remain a bilateral aspect? First, I would request Admiral AB to comment on it, and thereafter I'll seek the views of Dr. Kartha.
So, at the outset, I must say that Quad deals with Indo-Pacific. We have to
Yes.
clearly understand, and the Indo-Pacific has two huge oceans into it. One is the Indian Ocean region, and the second is the Pacific. And if we look at the powers who are involved in Quad, really speaking, US and Japan are the Pacific powers, And Australia, to that certain extent, also is an Indian Ocean power. And therefore, India is central to the activities in the Indian Ocean region, at least. Second point I want to say is that we must not link Quad and our relationship with the US in the same light,
Yeah, absolutely.
because relationship with US is a bilateral issue, whether it is trade tariffs or it is negotiating or getting more equipment, or preparing for the next war, or containing China, or relationship with Pakistan. That's a bilateral issue as far as I'm concerned, and it does not fit into the Quad framework, in my opinion. Now, if we were to look at the Quad, effectively it is the maritime domain, and it is to contain China, if we were to talk in a very open manner. Now, if you were to contain China, there's nothing that they can come and do, the Quad can come and do on your land borders. Effectively, it is going to let you do what you want to do in the maritime zone and maritime domains. So, from that perspective, can we leverage the Quad to improve our maritime capability and our maritime performance? Is the question that we need to ask ourselves. And if we look at it from a non-China perspective, all the four countries beside all the three countries besides India are actually, if you look at it from a continent or a oceanic or a islandic nations, which is when they are dealing with the oceans. So therefore, their technology, their investments, their ability to understand the seas around the disputed areas of East China Sea and the South China Sea really enhances our capability to understand those areas. Also, they bring in a lot of assets which we can learn, and it's a give and take. They will learn from us and we will learn from them. And of course, if we share technology, because if you remember, both Australia and Japan are alliance partners to US. We are the only
Yes,
ones who are the not the partners. And therefore,
that's right.
any technology which has to come, let's say from Japan or from Australia to us, or we have to share some technology, would de facto require the clearance of the US. And therefore, Quad helps in that manner. So if you look at the underwater domain awareness, mapping the oceans, satellite communications, undersea cables, uh, sharing of infrastructure in ports, sharing of tankers. There's a whole lot of scope out there in the maritime domain that we need to exploit. We've also seen that some high-end technologies, such as called Certas ships, which is for underwater detection, undersea gliders. We are talking of many technologies, whether it is laser-based weapons for UAVs, unmanned systems. You know that range is very large, and therefore there is a possibility of a cooperation on a larger basis. So let's say we decide to make underwater systems collaboration between Australia, India, Japan, and US, and base is somewhere out of the Indian Ocean or the Pacific. There'll be tremendous benefits and a lot of benefits in the future. So I think there is a huge benefit to stay with Quad. It should not be just taken as a transactional thing. It's a long-term issue. We've got to look at it from a 10 years, 15 years, 20 years perspective, not just look at what is transactional today or tomorrow. So that's I think we'll request Tara to kind of sum that up.
Okay, okay. So before I let Dr. Tara get into this, I want to build. He's built a very interesting situation, batted for the maritime, and I'm the land warfare guy. So I will do some kind of a. I am now painting a hypothetical situation, and here I will first request Dr. Tara and then Admiral AB to comment. Uh, we have the round two of the recent conflict which we had with our friendly friend across the line of control, and this time somehow the Navy gets involved in it. See, till now the Navy wasn't part of it. They kept waiting for some kind of a response. The Navy gets involved into it, and the maritime domain gets open. what will be the situation of the Quad partners in this case? First, Dr. Tara Kartha, and then Admiral AP. I thought, let me play a little war game also.
Okay.
See, in all the, no, you talked about US Pakistan, that thing, that
Yes, yeah,
whole
yes, because
relationship.
yeah,
Yeah.
see, there is a situation now that the Western Fleet has started the operations on Karachi. I'm just giving a hypothetical situation. So, what will be the Quad partners' views in this case?
See, one big problem here, which we face for years, is that divide between Central Command and Pacific Command. Quad
Yes,
is a Pacific Command enterprise. It's not
yes,
CENTCOM enterprise. This is
yes,
going to be a key problem. Number
perfect.
two is the fact that Trump's, this mediation thing, he did it in his first term also, President Trump. He did it thrice, if I remember right, once when I was there.
Yeah, he has spoken number of times.
He's done a number of times. So that's like, I would absolutely agree with the Admiral Singh that we should not take into account in terms of Quad. It's a different.
Even
You also
even
need to remember. So
even
sorry.
Nirbhuma Rao says so. Even Nirbhuma Rao says so. Let them keep talking about mediation. Doesn't make a difference to us.
Yeah,
We
it
should.
is. We do
Yeah,
what we want. What we do. Meanwhile, we continue. Quad is in a different level altogether.
yeah.
And also, the if you say if there is, but it's an interesting subject. What would happen under whose? So if there is that the Indian Navy gets involved, it's going to be the CENTCOM who comes in. And if
Yes,
CENTCOM is heavily invested in Pakistan and always has been,
yes,
and there is not going to end today or tomorrow.
yes.
So, the nonetheless, I don't think you can just, recently, like you said, the statements which I saw from Japan and from Australia, the other partners, they were totally pro your action. I mean, they didn't sort of cheer you on, but they was like saying, this is, this is shows your leadership in the region.
Yeah.
So your activity, they would all prefer that you don't, because they would like you to turn to China rather than Pakistan. And for that precise reason, China is likely to encourage round two. That is my biggest fear. Because we just had that news about, the China, we all of us know the Chinese, Pakistan, the Chinese link in Operation Sindoor, how much they help them with satellites,
Yeah,
Chinese, all that
th-
stuff.
there, there is no need, there is no dearth of evidence required for Chinese
Yeah.
collusivity. In fact, people are calling it as China-Pakistan fusion rather than collusivity. If there is going to be a China-Pakistan fusion, Admiral AB, I think what Dr. Tara is saying that we should uh, correct me, Dr. Tara, if I'm wrong, avoid as far as possible a confrontation in the maritime domain, because there would be a split in the Quad as far as their approach is concerned. Given the fact you also seen the CENTCOM commander Kurila coming out so favorably in favor of Pakistan, etc. And she's absolutely right. If you go and meet the PACOM leaders, they are all with India, and if you meet the CENTCOM leaders, they are always with Pakistan. Maybe they are more land centric also. So, do you think that isn't this a very tricky situation for India?
No, I
And
don't think so.
you as a maritime commander, having commanded that area, what would be your recommendation? Should we do what
But
we have
see,
See,
to do?
can I just interject here, just one line.
Hmm.
CENTCOM will have a not. I'm not saying they'll be partial towards Pakistan. If
Hmm.
anything goes out of hand, they have the capability to come in and sit in Pakistan. They have that capability.
Okay.
So we need to keep that in mind. I'll
Yeah,
stop
so
there.
that's why I'm saying there is a challenge here. So I'll ask Admiral Levy to say what he has to say on this situation.
see, at the end of it, operations at sea, whether it is by CENTCOM or PACOM, will be largely controlled or within the guidance of the overall ambit of a relationship between countries. So, CENTCOM commander is not going to just, he's going to give a view that this is what he would suggest. But I
Mhm.
don't think at any stage he would be siding with either of the two sides. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
And I would say a little bit difference here from the time maybe when Tara was there in the NSCS and now there is some change which has happened. Earlier, we were uh, outside the combined task force which operates out of the Persian Gulf. Now we are embedded into it. We have an officer who is a duty captain there. So it is
That's
not
good.
that we don't have the years, and this happened during my tenure in command, and after many years of struggle, finally we were able to put an officer. Now our aircraft and the ships are deployed as part of CTF operations. So it is not that we are not contributing towards the general maritime security and anti-narcotics trafficking, the anti-smuggling, the anti-gun running, the anti-human smuggling. All those issues we are very well involved into. And if it is going to be an action, it's going to be a limited action for a limited duration that would take place as far we are concerned, and we will be very sure in our minds as to who are the assets that we are going to attack and we are not going to attack.
No, we're not discussing
I
we're
want to
not
go back.
discussing specifics. We're not discussing assets, etc. That's beyond our
So
current.
I just want to go back to the era when Afghanistan war was on. And if you remember Parakram era, we were deployed in a large number, and fairly actively employed and deployed there. There was a clear understanding between CENTCOM. Although the chain was like, you would talk to PACOM and PACOM will talk to CENTCOM, and that would happen like that. But I think now the lines are much more clearer. When I was CNC, I had gone and met the CENTCOM commander. We had a meeting together in Qatar. So all those lines have opened up today, which were not there, say, 5 years ago. So if I were to say post-COVID, there is a change which has happened, and I don't foresee any challenges, if that were to happen on the maritime front.
So, Dr. Tara Kartha, you would agree that there would be certain amount of operations which India can conduct, but it would be kind of I'm not trying to equate it exactly the way it should be. Like we are doing operations under a nuclear overhang. This will be an operation which is going to be tacitly with the understanding of the United States of America.
Pretty much. I mean,
No, let me interject. I did not mean that.
Mhm.
It's an
Or
independent.
or you
They
would
may know about it.
no, or you would calibrate your operations in such a manner that you do not invite any kind of a interjection by the CENTCOM.
So
no,
CENTCOM does not.
sorry,
Okay.
sorry. Please
Yeah,
say.
Tara, go ahead. Yeah, Dr. Tara, go ahead.
No,
Yeah, let
see,
Dr. Tara speak first, and then we can have you.
Yes.
see, I want to say one thing in very clear terms. Pakistan's nuclear weapons are aimed at US, not us. In the sense, everything they do, whenever they want to fight with you and they want to end the war, they'll bring out one nuclear weapon and keep it there. So that relationship will continue. Whenever they find, say, the Navy, to answer your question, if the Navy goes and starts bombing Karachi, you've certainly crossed a certain threshold, in which case the US will have to come in. That's what I'm
Okay.
trying to say. It's
Okay,
not
I'll take this thing. I'll take this thing a step further. I want to make this discussion a little more than the normal routine discussions which we have. Because I was getting the kind of comments which we were getting. So I'll take this thing further and say that there was this mental block that crossing the international border or line of control by air was considered as an act of war. Normally, I mean, this was the practice which generally people used to follow. So currently there is this mindset that if we bombard XYZ, or if we attack XYZ, I'm not saying bombard, or we take any action which is along the coast, will be considered as an act of war. So will that also be calibrated in a manner that there will be a kind of a conflict in the maritime domain which will be military and not a response to a terror attack? Subsequently, the way it has happened on the land border, initially it was a terror response, and then thereafter it all got converted into a military response. So if something is undertaken from the naval direction, will that not straight away become a war response?
Is that to
Is that,
me?
yeah, is this a mindset now that
Okay.
because that is the only threshold which has been left to be broken. We have broken the LC threshold, we have broken the IB threshold, we have broken the quantum of air to be used. Even that has been broken. Now the only threshold left is the navy.
No, I would look at it in a different manner. Let me try and put my perspective onto this entire Ops Sindhu.
Hmm.
There was a attack in Pelgam.
Hmm.
We responded
Hmm.
with a finite force which was aimed at the terrorism. It was anti-terror, and we did not do anything. We, in fact, the DGMO told the DGMO that this is what we have done. In response, they made certain number of attacks. They fired some missiles at us, and they did some things. Now, those most of them came from the Air Force
Yeah.
of the Pakistan, and so therefore now you have to look at it from a very self-defense perspective. If somebody is going to throw things at you from a place A, you would like that place A to be destroyed or become unusable. And that is the reason when we attacked these airfields, we attacked these airfields so as to make sure that we attack those airfields from where these assets were either likely to be moved or they were likely to get launched. And therefore, we stopped their ability to launch at us in self defense. Now, let's say if something similar had happened into the maritime domain. Now, I also want to qualify it here that when they launch something, you know, either our air defense took it off or they fell into places where it was immaterial. Okay,
Yeah.
they did not cause any damage to the larger population. So they were not either to an economic assets or to the larger population as such. Now, when that happened, now if let's say something similar was to happen in the maritime domain, we would be very well in our rights to attack in self-defense. And I don't think there is any reason. Also, I want to say that the escalation matrix and the escalation dominance will have to be controlled. Now, if we look at it as a very responsible nation, we did all that we did, clearly justifying under the rule of law that this is what we are doing and this is why we are doing it, and we have told it to the world about it. It's just that we told it later on. The question here is we should have done it more. We leave aside that issue of information dominance and things like that. So we were very clear in our mind that ethically we are right and legally we are right, and that's how we have gone about in Ops Sindhu, and that must be remembered. If anything happens on the maritime domain which can be used as self-defense, we can do that, and we can escalate, and then the entire maritime areas which are under control of the Park Navy or the SSG would be fair targets.
Okay, so I think we've had some very interesting mind picking of two brilliant minds, and what I'm gathering is that escalation control will be a major factor in whatever action we do in the future. If we have to, now I'm being a little cliche, that if we have to move towards the growth, I mean towards the national objective of becoming a Viksit Bharat by 2047, because we would not like to stunt our growth, which is taking place at a rapid rate, which is around 6.5 to 7% thereabouts, and we are likely to cross the and Germans and become the third largest, because somebody had pointed out this thing, that you see how is Germany increasing by 1%, 2%, and how is India increasing? Is increasing by 6.5 to 6.2%. It's not going to be much time before we are the third largest. The problem will be for the second and the first largest. So therefore, we are wanting to reach 2047 safely without any roadblocks. Hence, the escalation control will be a very, very major factor in all our conflicts in the future. as and when they take place. So how can this be ensured? Because you see, escalation is a very dicey kind of a process. Sometimes you want to control the escalation, but it doesn't get controlled. You see, so and it also depends on the other side. Are they rational enough to understand your escalation messages or not? So this will
Absolutely.
be our last. This will be our last question on the quad, and then we will take on some questions if there are.
I think it's, see, I just want to bring in this fact that China is dead against the Quad, right? There's no two ways on that. They can't stand this organization, especially now that the SCOs had a bad kind of press. Now the BRICS seems to be sort of opting, sort of shipping out. So if my fear is that they will encourage, instigate Pakistan to go into for something which creates another war between, another conflict between us, which inevitably will escalate. Pakistan is not that stupid. It has had its own, it has its own objective and it's kept to them. But this possibility is there. In that case, if this Chinese angle is brought out, and we should start, I think, bringing this angle out clearly, because Quad is against China. Quad's whole focus is against China. So, this Chinese angle in the India Pakistan and what could be in the future, what could China do in this, we need to really bring this out in all our diplomacy, in our conversations and everything, so that it becomes, I mean, Pakistan by itself is not a problem, right? It's the Chinese factor, and they're
Yeah.
doing this, that they will do this to stop Quad. That is the message that we need to convey.
Okay, so
So can I add one thing? As far as Quad is concerned, I want to say one thing very clearly, that it's very much linked to our Viksit Bharat 2047 goals.
Yes, yes.
Because if your economy has to grow to whatever figure, I don't want to quote a figure, but if I were to quote the railway minister, it would be about 28 trillion. Somebody else, it's 24 trillion. So it's around in the zone of 20 plus trillion. If you have to grow to 20 plus trillion, you have to use the seas for your, whether it is import or export, and therefore you need a stable Indo-Pacific, because your trade either is going to come from the Indo-Pacific or it's going to go to the Indo-Pacific. So that's very important. Second, your supply lines and supply chains, whether it emerge from the Middle East or they emerge from anywhere in the world, must be secure. As far as our Prime Minister's vision is concerned, whether we go back to 2022 when he spoke at the Quad Summit, he called the maritime forces and the Quad forces as a force for good in 2022. Whether it was the meetings of the chiefs of naval staffs, the chief of naval operations of the Quad navies in 2018, whether it was Japan, Australia, US, and India, who met at the Raisina dialogue in 2018, they all were very focused that free and open Indo-Pacific and a stable environment in the Indo-Pacific is very important. And that actually clutches into our Prime Minister's vision of Sagar, whether we want to implement Sagar in a Quad or Mahasagar. The Quad plays into it. And if you look at the recent announcement of Ports Initiative, which is going to be unveiled at Mumbai in 2025 during the Leaders Summit, this is all playing into this entire Viksit Bharat. So, in my opinion, I think there is a very important case for us to look at Quad, how it's going to support our aims of Viksit Bharat and the overall goals beyond being transactional from a one-to-one basis or being an anti-China. Yes, it has an anti-China role. There's no doubt about it. But how can we leverage this for our growth? I think that's the bottom line, if I were to leave it.
yeah, so I was I think in one of the think tank discussion, very important think tank discussion in Delhi, and we were talking about Quad then also, and one thing which came out clear in that discussion, and these were the guys uh, who are totally embedded into studying China for the last 30-40 years now, and they seem to to convey this message that as far as China is concerned, it has already assumed that Quad is a securitized platform. It is a platform to contain China. There is no ambiguity as far as this particular perception is concerned in the minds of China. So, what is likely to happen, in my view, is that it will continue to instigate Pakistan to carry out certain actions where the US interests are divided, and then only it can deflect the Indo-Pacific thrust which the Quad is trying to bring in. Now, this is a dilemma which I think we are going to face in the future, and we need to be careful as to how to deny this particular dilemma. And that is why you found that no naming was done in Quad also of anyone, whether it was China in the east or Pakistan in the west. Both were assumed or presumed that people will understand whom they are referring to. With that. The last point which I have, and you can give a quick one minute comment on this, is that you see, Quad is still a grouping of four nations, which is finds it at times difficult to coordinate its activities, because there is no, like even Brazil, you will find BRICS also, you will find there is a nomination done. Okay, the so and so will be president for the next 1 year or whatever it is. This kind of an arrangement is not there in the Quad. So therefore, it all depends on the leadership of that particular country whether it wants to take it forward or not. You must have seen in Quad 1, when it was initially broached by Japan, there was a huge gap thereafter, and then suddenly people again started talking about taking Quad forward because of situations which were developing in South China Sea. So do you think there is a need for formalizing this entire platform into some kind of a permanency with and don't blame me for it, for some kind of a permanency with a headquarters or something which continues to coordinate, keeps data, keeps the records of what all has happened in the past, and move forward in a systematic manner.
Yeah, Dr.
Dr.
Tara, then I'll go.
Dr. Kartha,
But
you have to bell the cat, and if you don't want to bell the cat, you can say I don't want to comment on it.
no, I like the SEO has a secretariat, right? It has
That's
a
what.
proper secretariat. It hasn't
Yes.
done it much good.
No, it
I
may not be
still don't
done.
know what SEO is about. I
No,
mean,
it
to
may
be
not be.
honest.
No, even SARC has a secretary. It's not done
Yes.
good,
It,
but not having anyone to do anything is worse than that. At least there is somebody on whom you can rely upon.
yeah, there's a certain continuity involved
Yes.
in that. That's true.
Yeah. So
But
requirement is definitely there. You agree with that or not?
I do agree. I think you need to, like, if, but for example, if you, though I would also 100% agree with what Admiral Singh said on, the benefits for us. Let's quickly take those benefits before we talk of anything else. But the question is, who will host such a secretariat? Australia doesn't want to annoy China,
So, so,
so
so put your finger from your
yeah,
perspective.
that
Which is
is
the
a
which is the
problem.
best country to which is the best country to do it?
I think the US, if the Trump is indeed so bent, I mean, you don't know which way he goes. He sometimes praises him, sometimes he does something else. So
What
if
about Japan? What about Japan?
Japan won't, I doubt very much if Japan will, because Japan is very, very careful on what it does. And you're right. So that continuity is more being done through a quadrilateral sort of framework, 2+2, 2+2 kind of thing, and with these occasional summits. But what I would like to point out is that there are a number of working groups under Quad which are continuous. That is not sitting quiet and waiting for the next summit, though. Those activities go on, like the maritime domain awareness, like the working group on cyber security. All this is continuing. So there is a lot of continuing activity, and I think for the moment, for our own good reasons, it's best to keep it at that.
Best to keep it at that, Admiral ABC.
No, I don't quite agree with Tara on that issue. We
Thank
have to
God we're
remember.
having some discussion here.
Yeah.
Let's have
So let me
let's.
put it in a different manner a little bit. See, all these other groupings that you're talking of, we don't shouldn't compare apples and oranges. See, Quad is a grouping of democracies. Democracies have challenges, And if you go back, you sometimes you'll be very nice, and sometimes if you look at the Kevin Rudd government, they withdrew out of the Quad in the Quad 1.0. So it will depend upon. And I was just looking at the data which was there on Quad. In the last 6 meetings of the leadership of the Quad this year, when the 7th meeting takes place in India, our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, will be the only one who will be the constant in that entire meeting. Rest, everybody would have changed.
Yes.
So I think there is a huge challenge, but you need a secretariat. See what happens. Leaders give directions. The second rung leaders, which is the finance minister and the defense minister, let's say, whenever it happens, they also give directions. Somebody has to give those directions, get those directions, and put it to fruition and bring results and bring, workable solutions to the table. Now, when we talk of these working groups, they are all over the place. They are not the only jobs that those people are doing. And therefore, when we talk, we must clearly define that we must have a secretariat at least for a follow-up. And if I were to put a finger where this secretariat should be, I think in US, in Guam, they're in the heat of everything. There's nothing better else to do. So, really speaking, what are they going to do besides following up on these issues is something. So I think that's much important. And unlike the other 3 democracies where a lot of media is there, this is out of media swipe anywhere. It's far from anywhere. It's in the area. And of course, the President of the United States has sweeping powers, and therefore he can take decisions and write a bill and say this is what is going to happen. So in my opinion, I think there is a need to have a secretariat, a Quad secretariat, which must then look at all the decisions which have been taken in the last, say, 15, 20 years, and where are we on each of these decisions? And is there a need to recalibrate those decisions in light of today's geopolitical situation? I think that's
so
I think I want to say, since my time is going to run out, we forgot to wish everybody a happy 4th of July.
Yes, happy Independence Day. Straight away, I am going to take only 4 questions. There are about 20 odd questions in the question box. So the first question is from Akash Krishna Thadani. There is a problem with Quad, as both Japan and Australia are dependent on the Americans. In reality, Quad is between Bharat and USA, with Japan and Australia in support background at best. I think this was hinted to by Edmund Levy. Anyone can comment on it. Who goes first? We'll go one by one. So this one we give it to Dr. Tara.
No, they are already part of NATO. I mean, those kind of security things are also there. But I think the flexibility in Quad, because what Admiral, I think, did not mention is Quad is looking to expand, is looking to bring in a lot of other people. And that is also one reason why you're not having a secretariat, because most of these countries are terrified of China. They don't know which way to go. So in this, it is Japan and Australia's interest to bring in new members, to bring in India, much more than the US. So I don't think it's just India and US. In fact, actually, nowadays, especially now, given the Trump tariff and all that stuff, it is far more an alliance between India, Australia, and Japan. The common interests are far more.
Okay, so we will not go ahead with the counter comment because we are running out of time. I'll take the next question, although it's my name is there, but this is for Admiral Levy. General Dushyant Singh, when USA has so much interest in Pakistan, will they allow it to balkanize? Now, this is a question not related to today's discussion. So, if you wish to answer, you can answer. Otherwise, we'll move to the next question.
I think let's keep it focused to Quad.
Okay, so I'll go to the next question, which is: we know we have a clear military doctrine to counter our adversaries, but do we have a clear political and economic doctrine so that the real benefit of Viksit Bharat goes to common man? So you can take it on because you didn't answer the previous one. The question remains with you.
See, absolutely, Viksit Bharat is for India, every Indian. There's no doubt in my mind that, whatever the nation is doing or the leadership is doing or we are doing as a country is all to improve everybody's standard of living. When I go to my village back in Prayagraj, even now, I see the change that has come about in the last 20 years. If you look at from 2000 to now, a huge amount of change. So I'm sure this change and the number of people who are getting out of the poverty line would be much more impressive when we see, let's say, 20 years further down the line. So Viksit Bharat is a goal for India, and I think Quad is going to support that role.
Yeah, the next question is for Dr. Tara, addressed directly to you. So you have no choice. We know we have a clear military doctrine to counter our adversaries,
The
but
earlier question.
oh, sorry, no, it didn't come out. Uh, why isn't it showing? Oh, no. Oh,
Yeah, I can see here. Notice Central
yeah,
Command. Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Taraji, don't you think the Central Command is already in Pakistan and will be ready to come running to support them as and when the need arises?
That's the trickiest question of all. I honestly speaking.
You only broached it up, so you are
Yes,
getting
I did.
the you
Yeah,
are getting
I'm putting the.
you are getting the bounce back.
Yeah. So I would, they have nowadays an interest in Balochistan, as we know, in terms of critical minerals, etc. They've always had an interest in Pakistan. Will they support Pakistan the way China does? No. I mean, that kind of intel sharing would completely wreck any relationship that we have with them. That will be completely unacceptable to India. So they know
Okay.
that, and in terms of size, well, we are 10 times the benefits from us are 100 times more than from Pakistan.
So this is for you, sir, because this is the question which directly relates to you, and you can answer as best. Should Quad help Taiwan against China as China helped Pakistan against India during Op Sindhu?
See, there is a very interesting RAND report, which
Mhm.
is worth a read about. I can forward a link if required.
Mhm.
It clearly brings out and it analyzes which are the countries which are going to stand in support of US if there was a China-Taiwan crisis. And this is about, if I'm not wrong, the report is about 3 years ago, and it clearly brings out that national interests of countries would certainly come into play, and it singles out, every country. It examines India, it examines every country in the region, and says finally at the end of it, the war is going to fought between Taiwan, maybe Japan, US. That's all. Maybe Korea if Korea is threatened. So
So that
these are speculations that we are doing here.
yeah. So
Really speaking, we don't have a role in a Taiwan crisis unless
that
until
was
it's mandated by
yeah
the
that was
government.
the answer which we were trying to say, that we as an individual country that don't have a role, but if some of the partners of Quad want to go ahead, they are more than willing, and that is why this question Jack in out of the box is a very discerning audience, and he asks very sharp questions. This question is: Quad can play a double role as far as security is concerned, protecting maritime interests in the seas east of China and leaving offensive actions against China to each individual member countries. This was the belief which you just expressed. Dr. Tara can also comment on it. I think this is what exactly Admiral AB had also said this. This is the answer to the previous question. Dr. Tara, your views on this?
I,
And then
I,
we'll,
I think I'll pass on this. This is not really my area. So
okay. So this is your area. Would you like to comment on this, sir, Admiral AB?
Okay, let me try and put it across. If you look at the 10 largest trading countries of China,
Hmm.
7 of them are in the
Look,
Indo-Pacific.
Indo-Pacific.
7 of them are in Indo-Pacific, and much of the trade, if you look at the energy trade, the energy trade is about 54% in terms of what comes from the Indian Ocean. So each country will have a role. And if you look at the LNG trade or the natural gas trade, much of it again comes from the Middle East. So huge impact can be made on China's growth potential and its ability. So China has much more to lose in case of a conflict with anybody, really speaking. And would it put force to take over Taiwan? It's a question which I think can be answered by many other people, not me, really speaking. But it's a matched force. The Americans are there, and it's not going to be easy. If it happens, it's going to disturb the status quo. It's going to disturb a lot of things, and whether the war would escalate into a global scenario, I don't know. It's too early to comment, and I don't want to risk that comment here.
Okay, so we will go to the last question, and this I think Dr. Tara can answer, because the question relates to this. How about expanding the Quad to other East Asian countries? Views of all panelists. I, for one, would like expansion, but expansion has to be done very carefully, so that we do not have dissent subsequently and it becomes a defunct Quad. This is my view, and Dr. Tara and Admiral Leby can say what they have to say on this issue.
I think in some ways they're already part of Quad. As far as your maritime domain awareness goes, the number of countries, I'm not going to mention them. That is a central view of Quad. And why not? I mean, we keep saying this parroting this phrase that ASEAN is central to Quad, to the whole enterprise. So I would assume that ASEAN sitting on the fence is going to be a problem. So you might have to have a division where some countries are part of certain initiatives while you carry on with your separate endeavors. That's all you can do. But ideally, yes, you need a larger group.
Yeah. Admiral Leby, sir, before we
Yeah,
close the.
actually, there was a proposal for a Quad Plus
Mhm.
during just before COVID, which included a certain number of countries, and
Yeah.
it couldn't progress. So eventually, it has to deliver, and people have to see benefit in their joining of Quad, and then only they will join Quad. And
Okay.
there are many more bilaterals which are going on. I think Indonesia is a great country to be included in Quad. It brings with it a lot of value. Indonesia, Malaysia are two brilliant countries from a Quad's perspective and from India's perspective, that they must be included into the Quad. They'll bring a lot of leverage in the maritime domain against China. So I think that's where the Chinese Navy is growing. So that will bring a lot of leverage. So there is a benefit in growth, and I suppose it will happen in due course of time. Just remember, Quad is not something which is going to deliver tomorrow. We got to look at it as an organization which will deliver for this global community in, say, 15 years down the line, 10 years. We have to look at a Chinese perspective, 15 years, 10 years, 20 years, that kind of a perspective.
So I think thank to all the panelists, and I would sum up by just saying three lines. The first line is that there is a pleasant change which the Quad is undergoing, especially after the current foreign ministers meet at United States of America. We should welcome that. The second point is that Quad has to be looked at as a separate issue than the ongoing bilateral altercations which are taking place between the member countries and the regional issues which are plaguing certain countries, which includes India. The third, and this is where I seem to bat more strongly, is that we need to use Quad for building our defense capabilities. Unless we have, because that is one area where we need to really work hard. While in the naval domain we are fairly good, but in the air and the land domain, we do need, especially space also. I mean, space today is coming out to be a very, very major factor in deciding the wars of the future. And it is here that although we are part of the elite club of the top four countries, but we really do not have the capabilities matching to the the other three. So therefore, we have to actually work very hard as far as building our defense capabilities is concerned, harder than what we have been doing now. And I could also like to share that the government of India is really taking it seriously, given the fact that a few days back you had a meeting of the DAP where a lot of projects have been passed on, and people are really busy scampering around to ensure that we are able to meet our future challenges in the domain of air. And it's not that the maritime domain doesn't need capabilities, because we have a maritime guest also with us. But the fact is that relatively we are asymmetrical in the maritime domain compared to even China and Pakistan. Because China has to come to Indian Ocean region to, it may keep on saying that it is a near Indian Ocean region power, but it has to come through those three so-called straits, and those three darwajas are controlled by us. So till that remains, I think we are good to go as far as naval domain is concerned. With that, I would also like to give you a pleasant news by one of our audience who says, excellent podcast with great insights. Thank you, Jan Dushyant, Faisal Murlebi, and Dr. Tara Kartha. So don't bother too much about the audience, bother about the quality of audience. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. And once again, thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.